searched before or maybe you've looked at maybe once and put it in front of you as an ad. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Osa. Today I'm going to react to an article called Dictatorship of Data. So I haven't really read this article, so it's going to be like a new, for the first time ever, a blind reaction to the article, all right? To a content, rather, to some sort of content, rather, all right? Let's begin. The Dictatorship of Data. Robert McNamara epitomizes the hyper-rational experience led astray by numbers. All right? Big data is poised to transform society from how we diagnose illness to how we educate children, even making it possible for a car to drive itself. Information is emerging as a new economic input, a vital resource. Companies, governments, and even individuals will be measuring and optimizing everything possible. But there's a dark side. Big data erodes privacy, and when it's used to make predictions about what we are likely to do but haven't yet done, it threatens freedom as well. Yet big data also exacerbates a very old problem, relying on the numbers when they are far more fallible than we think. Nothing underscores the consequences of data analysis gone array more than the story of Robert McNamara. Data is basically information that's being collected through usage of certain web-based tools like Google, Facebook, whatever streaming service you can think of. Anything you can think of that you have to put your name, have to identify yourself with your name and some sort of age, whatever. That's kind of big data being collected right there and then, right? So as I mentioned here before, big data causes the problem of privacy. You can see that with Google. Google has its ways of Google and Facebook even. Both of them have their ways of implementing certain things that you've searched before or maybe you've looked at maybe once and put it in front of you as an ad to try to entice you to buy it, right? So a quick example would be, I'm learning, I plan on learning databases because I'm working towards being a developer or software engineer myself. So part of the stuff I'm learning right now is what I plan to learn is databases. So in Udemy, where I'm learning, I bought a class that was related to databases called MySQL, right? And I bought that class early in the morning, someday, I think a few days ago or whatnot. And then, I bought it, forgot about it. A few hours later, I get on Facebook, and there I'm scrolling Facebook, usually, how people usually do. And then I see that same exact product being advertised to me on the sale that they were having that I already took advantage of. That same product was being advertised to me on Facebook again. So I don't remember ever searching up databases on Facebook because I know for a fact Facebook is not selling databases. I went to the place where they were selling databases, where somehow Facebook managed to know where I was about to know what I was looking for, know what I was looking into, and put that in front of my face. So to get a sense of how big data is being used or affected by us daily, that's a good point, right? That's a good example for you to use right there in terms of regular ads that you're seeing that you might have searched up before, maybe hours beforehand or maybe even days beforehand. And then it's popping up in your social media accounts, or it's popping up in Google on some of the places where they want to do ads, like YouTube, for example, right? Let's continue. McNamara was a numbers guy, appointed the U.S. Secretary of Defense when tensions in Vietnam rose in the early 1600s. He insisted on getting data on everything he could. Only by applying statistical rigor, he believed, could decision makers understand a complex situation and make the right choices. The world, in his view, was a massive, unruly information that, if delented, denoted the democratic demarcated and quantified, could be tamed by human hand and fall under human will. McNamara sought truth, and that truth could be found in data among the among the numbers that came back to him was the body count. So McNamara was a highly intelligent person who was a big numbers crunch guy. So he was using those numbers to kind of help paint a bigger picture. So like kind of clear some pictures up. So for example, I think they'll explain it here in the article. Here, let's continue reading. McNamara developed his love of numbers as a student at Harvard Business School and then at its youngest assistant professor at age 24. He applied this rigor during the Second World War as part of the elite Pentagon team called Statistical Control, which brought data-driven decision-making to one of the world's largest bureaucracies. Before this, the military was blind. It didn't know, for instance, the type of quantity or location of spare airplane parts. Data came to the rescue. Just making an armament procurement more efficient saved $3.6 billion in 1943. Modern war demanded the efficient allocation of resources. The team's work was a stunning success. At war's end, the numbers of this group offered their skills to corporate America. The Ford Motor Company was floundering, and a desperate Henry Ford II handed them the reins. Just as they knew nothing about military when they helped win the war, so too were the clueless about making cars. Still, the so-called whiz kids turned the company around. As you can see, he went to Harvard. He was a very bright person. So at age 24, he was a TA basically. So then he got hired by the government to be a part of the statistical unit to help out with the Second World War, and obviously that type of things in terms of like resources and making sure you know how much you have in your armory. That's important in that type of situation, and obviously that was a success. And now you kind of see how the analytical strategies are being seeped into different variations of life or different variations of society. Here you have Henry Ford, who had Ford Motors, was going down the dumps. In desperation, gave them the reins to people that didn't know nothing about cars, and somehow it managed to help them out. And now you kind of see now in today's world. I'll use a basketball example where you have the Houston Rockets, who's run by general manager Daryl Morey. Now Daryl Morey is an MIT type of guy who I forgot what college he came to. He graduated from, but he's more analytical based. One of the first GMs hired in the league to be more analytical based, and by the statistical numbers. Based on statistical numbers, came up with a strategy for that team to be only threes, layups, and free throws. That was it. None other shots was taken. The mid-range shot was completely eradicated from that strategy, and everyone could take three. People can only take threes, go to the rim for a layup or a dunk, and free throws. So, as you probably, if you haven't followed basketball too much, that strategy brought a lot of success to that team. It changed the way teams were playing. It changed how teams were scheming in terms of defensive strategies, what type of plays they want to have on the court at once. But there was always a ceiling for that team, and the highest ceiling they got was the Western Conference Finals. Now, granted, funny enough, the only time they actually made it to the Western Conference Finals was with a player who was actually more specialized in the mid-range shooting game, and Chris Paul. The irony of that is fucking hilarious, but other than that, like, that strategy kept without Chris Paul. If we take out the Western Conference ceiling that they had, because they had a mid-range player in there, their highest ceiling was technically the second round, and after that, the second round, they don't make shots, or one of the main players there was James Harden ran out of gas. Regardless, whatever, a multitude of reasons why they never reached to the pinnacle, which was the NBA Finals, or win that championship ring, there was always a ceiling for that team. They never reached the finals. So regardless of whatever reason you had, the cap was second round Western Conference Finals. That was the cap for them. So they had to. So that was that was based on analytics, right? And the irony of that is that the teams that were successful were the ones that had some sort of implementation of the mid-range shot, the shot that Daryl Morey deemed unusable, deemed deemed a bad shot, basically, like a shot that's not that doesn't add any value to the team. The best teams in the league utilize the mid range very well, and they're the ones who are in the finals more likely than not. They're the ones that use the mid range. So that's just to say how data can really impacts people's lives, and if we're not careful, could kind of lead us to wrong avenues, right? So another good example, and I'll probably wrap this up here, is Spotify. Spotify is now, one of the biggest streaming platforms in terms of music in the world right now, and it's one of the biggest in the game, mainly also because of their independent artists. They're one of the main, mainly because they're one of the main places where independent artists can put their music out and get a big amount of following. They're one of the first people to do it. So Spotify now, now they are now the top streaming service for both now music from major artists and all the other independent artists that are out there, and now podcasts. They're adding now video podcasts soon. Now I kind of saw a video podcast with Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle probably a week or two ago. And what Spotify is doing now is they're leveraging their platform to independent artists, asking them for more royalties in exchange for more exposure for their music, which I think is fucking ridiculous, to be quite frank with you, because it's already hard enough to even, as an artist, I'm pretty sure it's already, I won't speak for myself per se, but I know as an artist, it's hard enough to already make money off your music as it is, with all these streaming services giving you fractions of a penny for plays. And here Spotify is asking you to give up more of those royalties, so that if you want more views if you want more people to listen to your music, more plays on your music, give up your royalties to us so they can make more money. That's insane, but you know how that is. What it comes down to is, and why most of these, like for example Houston Rockets, and Spotify's not careful, it could be them too as well, is the human factor, right? The human factor is a big thing here, and if you do not equate the human factor to your to the data or the numbers that you get from the information that you get with these analytics and with these analytical numbers, you're bound to fail, or you're always going to have a certain ceiling that you're going to reach, and then you're going to fail every time. Houston Rockets is a big example of it. Every time they were major successful, when it came down to it, teams were able to scheme against them, and the human error of them missing so many threes because they were such a volume 3-point shooting team, and that's all they depended on, live, die by the three. They never got to the finals. And Spotify, if they're not careful, and they actually do, because I'm not sure they're going to implement that royalty exchange for exposure policy, but if they do, they're vulnerable for another company or another streaming platform to offer a much more better deal for independent artists, and then that in turn will slowly peg them down some for the top streaming service in the nation to now the second or the third, slowly descending, then they're done, then that's it for them. So again, Spotify better be careful with that. But what they're trying to do with that, I'm definitely not supportive of that at all. So they better be careful, because a lot of people are going to see that and see, oh, okay, Spotify isn't what it used to be anymore, and that's just true. All right. So there's more to this article. I won't read much about it. It kind of explains what I kind of said here at the end. Yeah, I know I lied about the whole reading article. I read a little bit, but it kind of explains what's going on in the. It kind of explains what I explained here now around in the end about how data can be dangerous if we don't, if we're not careful, or if we're not careful on how we use data. And, I kind of summarize about the human factor and whatnot, but it's a little bit long. I'll put the link down in the description for the article so you can read it on your own. And that'll be the video. So like, share, comment, and subscribe. to this channel for more content. Comment on the page. What do you think about data? Is data already taken over? Is it too late for us? Or maybe there's a chance that we can change data to work for us much more better than it is right now, alright? So until next time, guys, take care. Let me start with congratulations, sooner or later appreciation for all the work you've put in. Damn, you came far, farther than the depths of the ocean water. Still undiscovered, I know Jones will be proud of. Still chasing things out loud, scope change. For better or worse, I still left unhinged.